Next up, Drew and Kaitlyn will discuss Paramore's recent release and the way this pop-punk band has continued to stay relevant in mainstream media.
Hey y'all.
Hey, so I saw Paramore at ACL, and it was life-changing. As somebody who grew up listening to bands like Paramore, Fall Out Boy, All Time Low, My Chemical Romance, I was having middle school, you know how it is. It's nice to see that Paramore is maintaining their roots, but still staying relevant. What are your thoughts on that?
So we're talking about their new album.
Yeah.
This is why.
This is why. I forgot to mention that.
I kind of agree with that statement, but I kind of don't because I feel like this album proves to me that they're willing to go experimental, right? Because their last album they went kind of like 80s pop, but then they went back to like their pop punk sound with this album, but it's way more like experimental and like sort of twitchy and very like punky, like but not like pop punky. It's like
it's more just like straight up
punk rock. Yeah.
Like I feel like you can see that in songs like I don't speak French, but is it C'est comme ça?
Yeah.
Okay, in C'est comme ça, when they have like the verses are very like slam poetry,
like spoken word.
Yeah, and then the chorus is like when it hits, and so I feel like that's when like the more like pop punk sound comes in, because I feel like that's more typical of something you might see in like punk rock.
So, yeah, there's songs off this album that I get old Paramore, like You First or Crave.
Oh yeah,
those are some of my favorites. But I like when they go very dancey. Like they get a lot more danceable. Like the title track.
Yeah.
My favorite is The News.
I love The News.
The News.
So good, and it's not because I'm a journalist.
Did they play that at ACL?
They did. The only song they played off of This Is Why at ACL was This Is Why. Because I might be wrong, but I think that was the only single they released before the album came out. But I honestly, like, with The News being the second song, like, it was like you could tell this was going to be a stacked album, you know, because they're starting off with 2 banger tracks. And when you hit that hard, like, the first 2 songs, you can, like, you just know, like, they've done it again.
They don't get like they don't get any ballads until Big Man Little Dignity.
Oh,
is that what it's called?
I think
yeah. That's a really good one, but like the first part of this album is all like fireworks. It's all like punky, it's bass lines like galore. It's like really good.
But the thing, like you were talking about with like the ballads coming in at the end, even though the ballads come in at the end, it doesn't feel like disjointed. Like it feels like a very natural progression through the album. And with the last song that is a ballad, you know, you can kind of see how they would do that. But let's kind of talk about why you think they've stayed relevant within the pop punk scene, and some of them other bands have kind of fallen off.
Well, you kind of say this in your album review, austinunderground.org. But you say how like Fall Out Boy and Panic! At the Disco have like they've tried to branch off, but when they branch off, it's been unsuccessful, right? Because Panic! At the Disco went pop, Fall Out Boy went like sort of pop rock, like electronics, and it did not work out at all. But like every time Paramore reinvents themselves, it's like they still have an audience, right? And they get new audiences over time, and they're like albums do, you know, big numbers. So I feel like that's what really makes them,
it's like
stand the test of time.
It's like they prove with each album why they've stayed a band for 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's why you should listen to This Is Why. But back to the hosts.
Will always be famous in my heart. Tune in after this commercial break for a fun game.